just gonna send you them. Okay. Okay, great. So I'll.
Yes. Yeah. Right.
2 to 3. So I have
I did not. That was a walk too far though.
Kind of walk like a mile back to my car.
Oh, that is not
But I'll
good.
get you the Slack channel. It's running
Okay. Happy one of those Catholic Fridays. Yeah. I didn't do the reciprocal program.
Oh, you made me out. Yeah, you could. Right.
Society.
Yeah. Hey.
You know what I'm talking about?
Not really.
But I can do my radio. It's not true. It's like, you know, people are gonna copy and paste. And like, this formatting is really good.
Yeah.
So, and like, some of that is meant to be really arbitrary.
Okay, everyone, I think we'll gather back here and get started on all things universal design. I applaud you all for coming this far. It's a long day of really fun content, though, so we're near the tail end here. So I'm going to take us through universal design, what it is, some of the benefits of it, and then some ideas for applying this to your course today. So with that, what is universal design? The Disabilities Act of 2005, and the Disabilities Act has been updated for 2017, but the language around universal design has basically remained the same. But it's the idea here that the design and composition of an environment so that it can be accessed, understood, and used. And then there are several bullet points underneath that to the greatest possible extent and independent in nature, in the widest possible range of situations, and without the need for adaptation. So the bottom line here is universal design creates an environment, as it pertains to this particular session, where your course content is accessible regardless of who the user is. So this is just good practice in general when you're talking about those individuals that do have a diagnosed disability, but also those individuals who prefer to access your course using a mobile device, perhaps. So thinking about it in different ways helps you understand the purpose behind it and the need for universal design. So why is it important? Kind of touched on this, but it's a field that's devoted specifically to solving design problems and to make resources easy to use and accessible to all. And it includes all kinds of content, and it includes text and video and documents and web pages and web design, writing styles. We could go on and on and on. Anything that you have in your course shell, you're talking about that design aspect of your course, and it needs to be accessible. I like this particular image by David Story. David works at Microsoft, and I follow him on Twitter. And I like this because of the quote for one, but also the nice imagery here. By designing for someone with a permanent disability, someone with a situational disability can also benefit. And then as highlighted with this visual image here, we've got a permanent disability. This woman has one arm, and then it ranges to a situational. So we're talking about someone who is a new parent. So perhaps they're trying to access your course and they are holding their baby, or they have this broken arm injury. So thinking of it from that perspective helps you understand the need and why should I put forth this effort to do this in my course if I don't have someone with a diagnosed disability that's been referred to me through the Office of Disability Resources. This is just a nice way, I think, to help get that context. There are 7 principles of universal design as defined by a group of product designers, engineers, and these were led by the late Richard, what's his last name, Cadell, I think, at North Carolina State. And these, they're pretty intuitive in terms of what they mean. Number 1 being equitable use, so everyone can use it regardless of their situation. Flexibility in use, and simple and intuitive, perceptible, tolerance for error, low physical effort, size and shape for appropriate use. Okay, well, these are great. These are you can define these, you can work with these, but how does this relate to your online course or to your face-to-face course? So with that, I wanted to kind of break down some stats here and then go into some specific examples within Canvas. So the idea that I was talking about accessing your course using a different device, 45% of students say that tablets are most important when it comes to accessing information, not necessarily course content, but just information as a whole, websites, their portal perhaps. And then on the same page there, we've got 37% of students saying that their smartphones are most important. And I think this will be on the rise because over 90% of Americans own a smartphone, and most of them are accessing that information right then and there because of busy lives, commute times. This is a nice, easy way to stay updated on what's happening, again, as it relates to this session within your course on their mobile device. And you're talking about, you know, over 2 million students that are enrolled in universities nationwide here that have a diagnosed disability. And they could be taking your class and they could not be getting the accommodations that are necessary. Is that your problem? No, not necessarily, but in a way it is, because you are going to be teaching them. They are going to be learning from you. So why not have a course that helps put them on the right footing from the very beginning, all the while helping those other learners as well. I like this slide because it talks about the mobile app, and a lot of our students have downloaded the Canvas mobile app and are using it on their phones. So you, as faculty members, being aware of this helps again, and I go through this in another slide, but downloading the app yourself and taking your course on that mobile test run to see, is everything working fine? Are the files downloading appropriately? Is there a lot of scrolling that has to happen with this particular page? So these stats kind of outline that usage, and this is obviously not specific to CU Denver just based on the sheer numbers alone, but Canvas is the highest rated LMS app for both iOS and Android. So outweighing, of course, Blackboard and D2L and some of these other platforms that universities use. 8 million downloads, 1.1 million unique Canvas app users per day, and then 2.5 million unique users per month. So what am I saying here? Canvas plus universal design equals a beautiful thing. Canvas is a very accessible platform when you design in Canvas. The second you start linking elsewhere, pulling content into the course, that's where problems can arise with accessibility and having that content display as you had hoped. There are ways around this through the HTML editor, but the best course of action is to ensure that you are designing the course content within Canvas. This can mean that you take a Word document and you copy and paste it and put it in your Canvas course. That's fine. Some of the stylistic things may change a tad, but again, that's easily fixable using the rich content editor and the HTML editor. But just thinking to yourself, I'm going to try to keep my students in Canvas at the best of my abilities without having them to go outside for a resource. So with that, I want to jump into some suggestions for making your course more accessible. And these I deem as relatively simple to do, but in no means is this an exhaustive list. And in no way am I telling you to set your current course on fire and just start over because you don't think it's accessible. Let's start small and let's move from there. You're making an effort, and that proves volumes for your students, and they recognize this and notice this. So first and foremost, using color and styles responsibly. So I have a visual here. This page itself, and this is from an older instance of Canvas, so apologies for the not updated left-hand navigation side. But this is a page, and you're not exactly sure what you might have to do here if you're a student. There are several different colors, there are different fonts, there's a random picture of a raccoon. Where does this link take me? And it's absurdly long. And what does that mean for me if I'm using a screen reader? What does this mean for me if I have low visual acuity? What does this mean for me if I'm colorblind? So herein lies the problem. And plus this image download could take quite a long time. So if I'm on my mobile device, I have no idea what this image is. It's just not rendering. So while it can be tempting to use different colors to highlight important information, and I totally understand where that comes from, and I've been guilty of it myself, just be aware of these users that are accessing your course, and just try to think more fluidly when it comes to designing your course and your content pages. Number 2, use headings. This is a great way to chunk up your information. Again, for the screen reader user, in addition, for those students that may prefer to quickly glance over the content page and for them to key into those items that they may want to learn more about or get an understanding of what that content page is going to go over with them. And just chunking your information in general has proven to be a better way for students to learn because they can retain it a little bit better than just having a laundry list of paragraphs that they have to read through and try to glean the information that they're supposed to. Having those headers helps them determine what that content will be and making that connection then when they read the content underneath that header. So this is just a quick example of what a header is. It's not simply increasing the font size and bolding it. There is the stylistic change on your rich content editor, which will change it to varying forms of headers. So you've got header 1, 2, and 3 varying sizes. So that's a great way to chunk up your information. And it looks good, it looks nice. So stylistically, it's a good way to go. Number 3, using tables for tabular data, not necessarily for page layout. And again, these are recommendations. This is not something that you need to do today, but these are our recommendations here. So an example would be tabular data is scientific information. You're talking about measurements. Perfect for a table. It makes sense reading left to right and up and down. Whereas on the right here, the example of a syllabus being inserted into a table. A little clunky, a little hard to read if I'm using a screen reader and I'm reading this left to right, as most screen readers do. I've got the title of the course, INTE, and if this image isn't tagged, it's not going to read that section of the table at all. And then I've got a nice little picture of an apple, again, if it's a tagged image. And then some text. So as you can see, as you move through this table, if you're using a screen reader, it's challenging to understand what is the concept of this table. What should I, the student, be getting from this? Number 4, providing that fallback option for media. If you want to post a video in your course, fantastic, wonderful. It's great to diversify your content. But make sure it's captioned. One, that would be ideal because you're giving the user the same experience. If they are not able to hear, then they can have that same experience by reading the captions instead of having to read the transcript and not being able to see the visual simultaneously. But a transcript will suffice. That is providing providing a fallback option if someone doesn't choose to watch video, because you do have learners too that would rather read instead of listening to a video. So this is just another example of kind of having that text underneath that video if that's what you so choose to do. But captioning is the most ideal option, and we do have some options for captioning coming up. We piloted Relay this past spring, and it's looking like it's going to move forward, and eventually what happens in Relay is it starts to recognize your voice. So it does a little bit better job each time with captioning your video because it starts to understand your voice and the influx in your voice. So there are some options with YouTube, but it's tough with YouTube because of the automatic timings. And if you do that automatic sync, then oftentimes you're going to be in there editing because it just can't capture the words correctly.
So we don't have options right now for captioning.
YouTube is definitely an option. You can access Relay, and I think Alex is doing a session on Relay either tomorrow or Thursday, so he can go into it. So yes, that is an option to you right now, and then YouTube. And then there's the Amara software, which is built into Canvas, and it's very much like YouTube. You know, you upload the video, you listen, you stop the video, you type the text. So it's a little labor intensive, I'm not gonna lie. But it gets you to be thinking, and Amy Arnold's gonna be doing a session on video, but it gets you thinking about what is an appropriate length for my video. How long do I anticipate my students watching this video? And therefore you might think, I need to cut this down a little bit. And then of course, a symptom of that would be fewer captioning minutes you have to spend. So, Kim.
So if we're doing a lecture,
Mhm.
we should caption that?
It would be fantastic if you did. It is not required. It is definitely not required. But if you are hosting an entire lecture, and you know, if you're talking about a 60-minute lecture, a 30-minute lecture.
Oh, no, I only do it 15 minutes.
Well, that's
That's
perfect.
what you guys said. 5 to 8
Yes, well, I'm
minutes.
so pleased to hear that. When I hear lecture, I just automatically think in my head, it's
50.
a longer, yes. But
Yeah.
thank you for heeding our advice, and that is correct. So, yes.
I did a lot
Perfect.
of captioning with YouTube through the pilot, and so my workaround was to do the automatic YouTube captions and then go in and edit them instead of doing it from scratch, because one, I'm way too lazy for that, and two, they usually do a pretty
They do.
good job. And I was working with like pharmacy captions, so for me, the big edits were like drug names or like spellings of certain things, because some of those names are really intense.
Yeah.
They do a pretty good job.
They do, and you know, it gets tricky because you want to have, if there's laughter in there, you want to include that. You want to have the timings just right so that the text matches what's happening on the screen. Anyway, we have an entire session on captioning, but I'm hopeful that there's going to be more options down the road, and I would love to launch a bigger pilot and even think about having our help desk assist faculty in captioning maybe some of these longer videos and what that might look like. Anyway, more to come on that front, but yes, TechSmith, Relay, and then YouTube and Amara are your current options.
So then if we record on Zoom, we'd have to upload it to YouTube?
Correct.
Okay.
And I've noticed sometimes, depending on the length of the video, and I don't know if anyone else has encountered this, that YouTube just won't do it. It times out, it won't caption it. So if you're talking about a 30-minute Zoom session that you've recorded, I'm not saying you're talking the whole time, but maybe it's a collaboration session that you're having, and you try to upload that and then do that auto sync and auto captioning, it might not. And I've tested videos that are 20, 25 minutes long, and I run into that issue. So, and you kind of get the idea, because most videos on YouTube are not longer than 3 minutes, you know, so that's kind of what they're conditioning folks to do. And I understand sometimes it's challenging because you have a lot of information to share, and we advocate that that presence, that interaction, and video is a great way to do that, but then the captioning piece also is there. So tagging images with the alt text, going back to that table example that I had where there was the image inserted, if you don't have that image tagged with alt text, then the screen reader is not going to know what that particular image is, and it will not be able to identify that to the user. So this is just good practice all around. And when you add in an image, specifically when you're trying to upload something to Canvas or searching Flickr within Canvas, it brings up this window automatically to insert the alt text. Sometimes there's a default description, but more oftentimes than not, it's not very descriptive in itself. So be as descriptive as you can. That's just very helpful.
So if you copy and paste an image without uploading it,
You can.
is there a way to get this?
You can. What you can do is go into the HTML editor
Okay.
and then look for that. I'm going to go back here. The ALT text.
Okay.
ALT TXT.
Right.
You'll find that in the code, and you can do a Control F and search for that. And then whatever comes after that is what you can change.
Okay.
And then you save it, and then it will render that description for the image. Great question. Number 6, reevaluating reliance on uploaded documents. This goes back to my initial plea to design your content within Canvas itself, but I know that there are documents that you need to import into your Canvas course. I understand that, but it's about being thoughtful and aware of where that original document is coming from, so that you can source it. Not only that, but also be able to have that original document in your course instead of a scanned image, a scanned PDF. There are ways, and I have resources because we only have 30 minutes today, that I'm going to pop into the folder on making PDFs accessible, your syllabi accessible, Word documents, Google documents, all of that. How do you make it accessible? I've got all those resources. I've got captioning resources that I'll put in the folder, the Summer Design Webcamp folder, for all of you to access at your leisure, and then you'll have those at your fingertips.
So an example of a bad one would be a scanned one?
A scanned image, yes, that does not have, so it's just scanned in, but it's not tagged, meaning there hasn't been that description about what the text is in there. So, and the Office of, has anyone ever worked with the Office of Disability Resources for any documents that need to be, okay. Because they're also a great resource too when it comes to textbook information that you want to scan in. But we have great guides that we can assist you with on making your PDFs, the scanned content accessible for your students. It's just a lot to go over today, so I think it's best when you're in that moment to have that working document that can help guide you through the process. So when you're thinking about uploading a document into your course, here's just a couple of questions that you may want to consider. Number one, is it accessible? Do I have that original document that I can scan into the course? Are there alternatives? Alternatives meaning, could it be just a Canvas page instead of a scanned document or an uploaded PDF that you're not the original owner of? Could you just build it in Canvas? And then, of course, what would it look like on a mobile device? And this particular visual gives you an idea of what it would look like on a mobile device. So the first one here on the far left is if a Word document was placed into a content page in Canvas, this is what it would look like on a mobile device. And then the second one is a PDF. So you've scanned a PDF into a content page, and your user opens up that, whether they click on it or you've made it, you've uploaded the file, but they're clicking on it, it brings it up in Canvas. This is what it looks like. As you can see, it's very hard to read. So you're trying to make it bigger, you're increasing the font size, and all of a sudden you've got to scroll left to right because you can't see the whole document. Whereas the third and final example is that of a content page designed directly in Canvas. So you can definitely see the differences here. And of course, file size too. You want to think about that when you are uploading files, both of video content and Word content as well. Anything where they have to click on and wait for that download, it could be something of this nature where it's waiting. Not only that, but there are many students that don't have Wi-Fi. They don't have internet access. It's all about their phone and the data that they have on their phone. So if they've run out of data, then it's going to be even a slower download. Again, is this your problem? Are these things that you have to think about? I would argue yes, you do, because this is our learner today, but you're not required in a sense, kind of, because we are a federally funded university, and therefore we do fall under that American Disabilities Act in ensuring the content is accessible. But again, it's about if that student brings it to your attention. But in this case, hopefully you wouldn't have to worry about that because your content is already accessible. So file size is a big thing to consider. Linking with descriptive natural language, two examples here. So the top one, again, that really long URL that maybe you just grab from Google, a Google search, and paste it in there. I know it's tempting, but actually giving it more of that natural language helps your users understand where this is going to take them when they click on it. It can be scary to click on things that you're not sure where it could go. You trust your instructors, you trust your course, but you never know where that might take you. So this, and again, it's helpful for our screen reading students as well.
But I thought that, and maybe this is older news, but I thought that it was easier if someone wanted to know what the source is. I mean, I guess if you hover over it, you can see it.
You can, and you know, honestly, Kim, you can put both options if you want. I would hate to confuse your students, but they can definitely, you know, the little window with the arrow indicates that it's going to take them somewhere else. And you're right. I mean, the source isn't necessarily highlighted here, but you can, if you wanted to, you can include both. If students were confused with the little source colon and then have the full URL, if you so choose. And then as I had alluded to earlier, here's the slide on taking your course on a mobile test drive. This is just a great way to test all of these things that I went over today with you, and some things to try would include navigating the entire course, viewing those files to ensure the download time is appropriate, and listen and watch any of the audio or video just to test it out, and what does it sound like, what does it look like on your mobile device. Has everyone downloaded the mobile app for Canvas?
Do you know when it's gonna be more from a faculty view though? Because all we can really see is more student view as opposed to doing faculty things. Do you know when that's gonna change or if it's gonna change?
Do you mean when you're trying to view the course?
We're
Anything
working
in
from your
Canvas,
phone.
you really are only going in as a student.
Right.
You only have the access that they have.
That's a good question, and I know they're still trying to modify the mobile app. There are still a couple of things that aren't really recommended to do on the mobile app, but that's a great question that we can take up with our product engineer. But you can too as well under the help feature within your Canvas course. You can ask the community and see kind of what, and you can search feature requests as well, kind of see what the status is on that. But yeah, if we're touting this, it needs to work in such a way that's friendly to both our faculty and students. So thank you for bringing that up, Lisa. And then finally, just, you know, keep it simple. That first page highlighted all the colors and the fonts and the images, and it's fun. When you think of design, I think, at least I do, I naturally go to the pretty colors and the pretty things, and but really it's about keeping it simple, very streamlined to your expectations for your students, as Margaret had highlighted the outcomes so that they know what they're responsible for, but also making that design very clean and simple so that it's easy for students to navigate. So that's all I have. Thank you so much for great questions and your attention. I appreciate it.
So where we're at, we've got our next and last presentation for the day, which is going to be a really hands-on workshop on presence. It's going to start at 2:30. That gives us 50 minutes for you all to, some more airtime to process, to chat with each other, to work on the things we've talked about today, to take a break, take a walk, whatever you need to do. We are here to help. We're here to work with you on anything you want us for. I'm going to stay right here and hang out. Kate will be around.